Hi, Howard and Barb. As we hope you know, there's a world of friends out here who are thinking of you. And as part of that, some of the editors and reporters that you've worked with over the years, from Anchorage to Sacramento, from one end of the country to the other, have been talking about how we might share some of our thoughts about, what you've done for us and how you've taught us and how you coaxed us along, how you shared life lessons, including all the best quotations that you somehow have on the tip of your tongue always, and how meaningful that has always been. So for the next few minutes, we're going to take turns telling a few stories, sharing how you influenced and led us, and thanking you for your good humor, your endless optimism, and the standards and power of the journalism you stand for. And above all, for your friendship. You would send us out sometimes on stories and sometimes on new assignments and sometimes as editors in new posts, in my case, from Raleigh to Minneapolis to Miami. And then you'd guide us along in this work that you yourself have achieved so much in, from twin Pulitzers to revelations that have changed communities to just exquisite writing. There's a lot of folks who've lined up to send along our thoughts. So we'll keep it brief, or as brief as journalists with something to say can be. It's not easy to choose from some of the big accomplishments that you've been a part of in our lives, or the quiet conversations over dinner when you'd visit our newsrooms. But we're going to try and in this way tell you how much you've done for us and how very much that means to us.
Hi, Howard. I'm sitting here in my home office where you can see two of my very favorite Rex Babin cartoons. I'm sure you remember them. One is of California voters popping all of Arnold Schwarzenegger's muscles, and the other is of Jerry Brown sitting in a recycle bin. I wouldn't have them to enjoy if not for you. You found Rex, you nurtured his talent as he, launched his time at the Bee. And I think that Rex is a good example of your influence across all of McClatchy and beyond, really. You guided many, many talented people to very excellent work, and it influenced communities around the country. It mattered at a statewide and a national level. And I just wanted to say thank you and let you know that I'm thinking of you along with many, many other people who recognize the impact you had and are thinking of you.
Good morning from Mississippi, Howard, on a beautiful December day. I'm sitting here reflecting on our time together, and it goes back to a particularly difficult and challenging time on the Mississippi Gulf Coast for the Sun Herald. Katrina had hit in August of 2005, and by the time that April came around, we were still in the muck. Also, we were hearing rumors of a sale of our newspaper. It was a very uncertain time, and fortunately, we had a lot of journalism to do, so we got after it down here. And we were so happy when we heard that McClatchy was going to be the one of several suitors that was going to be our new owner. And we anticipated the day that you and Gary Pruitt came to tell us about your vision of this place. We knew about you. We knew about your wonderful journalism, both as a reporter and as an editor, and of the public service that you had provided for the people of Alaska. And you came and put your arms around us in the newsroom, and we knew at once that it was a great match for us. You told us that you were going to be relying on us to make judgments about the news here, and you reassured, made us feel good, and you kept your promise. And through the years after that I was privileged to be the editor here, whenever I had a need for advice and counsel, I knew that I could come to you and that I would have complete support. And if I needed to adjust thinking, you were quick to help me understand a better way to do things. So you're a colleague, you're a man that I respect so much, and we thank you for what you brought to us, and we'll never forget those times and the great Howard Weaver being here for us. Thank you.
Thanks, Howard. I want to thank you for the compassionate leadership that you showed me and all of our colleagues during our time in the golden era of newspapering. Your leadership taught me some of the most important lessons I've ever had, and you're doing that again now. I wish you the best. May the road rise up to meet you. May the sun shine in your face. And let's just leave out the part about the wind being at your back. Perhaps that isn't something you want now. But anyway, Howard, thank you. You were a great leader, and you continue to be one.
Hey, Howard, it's Pat coming to you from New Mexico, the land of enchantment. Here at 7,000 feet, sending you love and energy. I'm thinking about a lot of memories from hours spent in that boardroom trying to get presentations and speeches up to Pruitt's lofty goals, and mostly succeeding, to getting to see the ranch. Before there was even a ranch there, it was just an idea in your and Barbara's heads, to an impactful hour at Crapeville, where we first learned with Chris that the games were about to begin. Lots of great memories. My favorite, though, are getting to hang out in your office as your neighbor and as your pupil, learning about public service journalism. Not a lot of people would take that much time with a finance guy, but you did. And I think it mostly stuck, and hopefully I was able to pass that passion on to folks along the way. Continue to take care of yourself, and we'll talk to you soon.
We were selling ball caps in the newsroom with the iconic Photo Scoopy character drawn by Walt Disney. A sign said, "Hats for $20. Howard walked by, considered the sign, and then pulled out a pen and changed the word hats to caps. Just a simple reminder that everyone needs an editor. And for that, Howard, I tip my cap.
I wanted to share with you a few memories that I have of the time that we worked together, and they're my favorite memories, and I thought maybe you'd be interested in hearing them. One was a year or so after McClatchy consolidated with Knight Ridder, acquired, as Gary was insistent on saying. We had a conference in San Diego, and you talked about your vision for what the news division ought to be doing. And you used the phrase that you used with Gary when you applied to be editorial page editor at the Bee, which was that you wanted the paper to be an operator's manual for civic life in Sacramento. And I was so struck by that. And in all our conversations since then, that's something that, whether you use that phrase or not, it's something you emphasized. Doing great investigative work, accountability reporting, but also sharing the lighter side of our communities, the things that made us happy or sad or whatever. And I really appreciated that. Another thing that struck me was how you took care of the reporters and the staff members at McClatchy Papers. When you came to visit Tacoma, you always wanted to see what you call the up-and-comers, the young people who were making a mark or on their way up or going to contribute over the long haul, in order to get to know them and kind of spot them and watch their progress and mentor them a little bit. The other thing I remember is when we sent several teams to Iraq, photographers and reporters during that war, every time we went, you insisted on, I had to call you when we entered the war zone and when we left the war zone. You wanted to be able to worry about your kids when they were away. And finally, I wanted to appreciate your interest in pushing us to always look beyond the obvious and what we thought was delivered wisdom. And I remember once when you came to the News Tribune and you held up a banana and you pointed out that most human beings, when they try to unpeel a banana, start here. But if you watch apes do it, they start here with a little twist and then easily open the banana and make it ready to enjoy. Thanks, Howard. Love you, man. See ya.
Hey, Howard. Mark Zeman, sitting here retired in beautiful Northern California, and I have you partly to thank for that. As you know, being an editor is a rolling heart attack, and nothing's more stressful than when you're bought out by another company. In our case, McClatchy buying Knight Ridder and my Kansas City Star. There were a lot of worried folks in the newsroom when that happened, including me. But one conversation with you changed all that. Your kindness, your support, your passion for journalism, your wisdom all meant a great deal to me at the time, and it still does. And in fact, your vision for McClatchy was so strong that I followed you out here to California. I understand you're in for another fight, and all I can do is offer you the same advice that the great Howard Weaver once offered me in a stressful situation. The dude abides, and so does Howard Weaver. Best of luck to you, Howard.
Howard, my heart goes out to you and Barbara. When I read your note with the grim news, I was struck by the uncommon grace and strength of character you conveyed. But that was no surprise there. It was the same Howard, the one who was such an effective and influential leader. You set the highest standards of journalism and inspired me to try to meet those standards in all my work after our paths diverged. Throughout my career, I tried to uphold the principle you set for our commentary at ADN. No permanent friends, no permanent enemies, only permanent principles. I did what I could to stoke the tribal fire of good journalism. One of my favorite sayings of yours is, "You gotta dance with them that brung you." I am forever grateful that I could be part of the dance you led at ADN.
Hello, Howard. It's Mel. Hi, Barb. I just, first of all, want to say love you and thinking about you here from North Carolina. And, so many thoughts, but I remember having an argument once with someone about whether a boss could really be a friend. And I think I would point to my relationship with Howard as proof that, yes, you can have someone who challenges you, asks you the tough questions, and sometimes has to tell you that you're wrong, and still be friends. And I'll always think so fondly about those times, those many conversations about poetry and music and books and journalism and what it meant, what it means. And also being up there in Amador County and jumping on the ATV and going down to the bottom of the gorge and just really enjoying the physical world, the trees and the water and being outdoors. Sending you just lots of support and appreciation, and we'll be thinking about you for many days to come.
Hi, Howard. As I was thinking about our time working together in McClatchy, by far my favorite interaction we ever had was the very first time we ever talked. And I'm sure I've never told you how much that conversation meant to me and what an impression it made on me. It was only maybe about 2.5 weeks after the Knight Ridder McClatchy sale went through, and I was still a fairly inexperienced executive editor. I got a heads up that the owner of the biggest car dealership in Wichita not only was going to pull tens of thousands of dollars worth of advertising, but had just put a letter in the mail to you and Gary Pruitt and Bob Weil complaining about that news coverage and kind of listing a litany of issues he had with the Eagle. So I thought, oh, great, the first time my name is going to cross their desk is going to be complaining about news coverage and loss of a huge chunk of advertising. So I got on the phone. I wanted to get a little bit ahead of that, and I got on the phone and left you a message and said I'd be glad to kind of fill you in on what we've written and why we're doing this coverage. And you called me right back. It was only maybe 10 minutes. And you asked about the stories, and I told you about this guy and what was going on with him and what we were doing. And then you suggested a 4-letter word, an activity that he could do with and to himself, and that was the end of it. And it made such an impression on me, and it so put me at ease and told me what I could expect in terms of support for the journalism from you and from McClatchy. And even though it's been, some 17 years, a little bit more than that, I can still clearly remember that phone call. And I wanted you to know that and to tell you that you are in my prayers and to take care.
In Howard's book, Ride Hard, Die Free, he writes that he would like his staff to be able to say someday, yes, I was in Anchorage in those days. I can say, yes, I was in Anchorage in those days, and I want to thank you, Howard Weaver, for giving me the best newspaper years of my career. Thank you.
Howard, greetings from the Washington Post newsroom. When I was asked to do one of these videos, I immediately thought of your book, Write Hard, Die Free. Your book has such vivid descriptions of the Anchorage Daily News and the life of a young reporter. Like you, I started out in kind of grungy, boozy newsrooms and rental apartments, except that mine were in places like Macon, Georgia and Shreveport, Louisiana. I especially love your description of the city editor coming up behind you and saying stuff like, deadline, deadline, pressure, pressure, and then flicking paper clips off your head. Well, as you can see, this is a much different newsroom. You know, it's largely empty Monday morning, and I guess many staffers have gotten used to producing their stories at home, sometimes in their pajamas. But there are some things that remain constant. One of them is the newsroom refrigerators. Yes, still a chemistry experiment. Howard, your writings and your wisdom have inspired so many, and I've tried to keep alive some of that newsroom spirit that you have in your book. I'll leave you with these words.
Hi, Howard. I first met you in the summer of 1986. You initially weren't aware of this. I was thinking about coming to work for the Anchorage Daily News. Hadn't made the decision yet. And right in the process of that, there was an article in Time magazine. And the article was about this little paper up in Alaska that was doing interesting things. And there was a picture of the editor, you, standing in the lobby of this kind of gleaming new building there in the atrium. And the article described special things that were happening at that newspaper at the time. It was one of several things, I think, that we sort of took it as a sign that this was the right thing to do. Linda and I headed north. We never regretted that. You helped build something really special here. All these years later, I have your old job here. And all the things that you helped build, so much of that still exists. Sometimes I think about it like DNA strands that you have to look sometimes, but they still very much exist running through this organization and the community. I never take it for granted. We have to fight all the time to maintain it, but it's there. And maybe above all, what that means to me is it's just the idea that you don't have to live in a big urban center to expect the best from your local newsroom. That you can live in a medium-sized city in Alaska, far from everything, or a village of 500 people off the road system, and you can expect extraordinary journalism from your local or regional newspaper or news site. We try to live up to that every day. So Howard, thanks for everything. I think about you all the time.
Hi Howard, Rick Timms here from Charlotte. I'll never forget the first time we met. McClatchy had just bought Knight Ridder, and you and Gary Pruitt were in Charlotte to convince us that all would be well. And indeed it was. As long as Howard Weaver was there, we were taken care of. I'll always appreciate that, and I'll always remember that you used to tell people when they would talk about the problems of newspapers, you'd say, we don't have a readership problem, we have a revenue problem. And you tell us, keep doing what you're doing because it's working and we need more of it. I tell that now to my students as I teach journalism, explaining that the work out there is still important and we need more people doing it. Thank you for all you've done for me, Howard. I really appreciate it.
So I wanted to take this opportunity to send you a message and tell you how grateful I am that I had 26 years at the Anchorage Daily News. I still have the gargoyle that you gave us one Christmas. That means a lot to me. You passed them around the newsroom and I got one. In terms of stories and lessons, the one story that popped into my head was the Christmas we invited Anchorage and Alaska artists to send us, to create a Christmas card that we would publish in the Sunday Art section. And most of them were very benign and predictable, except Joe Sonungatuck's, which was a big spring mounted on a wooden plaque that brought to mind a penis. And why that was his Christmas greeting, I can't remember, but it delivered a dilemma for the newspaper, which is, are we going to take a picture of that and put that in the paper? And there was lots of discussion, and I remember that at one point we thought about we would turn the art section into something that looked like a brown paper bag, with graphic art, to say, go in at your own risk, there's risky material in here. I think we walked up to that and then walked away from it, and I remember that you were trying to accommodate us and said we could have an art show downstairs at the Anchorage Daily News, and we could mount that picture for sure. Well, in the end, I don't really remember if we published any of them, but we certainly didn't publish Joe Sonungatuck's, and we did not do a plain brown wrapper. So what was the lesson here was, go big, go open, be open, but you have to sometimes step back and think of who your audience is and what the audience maybe has the capacity to handle. So I thought we made the right decision, and you made the right decision. Anyway, there were lots of other things I could talk about, but that was one that made me laugh when I thought about Joe Sonungatuck's Christmas card. And I just want to say to you that I am so grateful that you took a chance on me at some point. Why, I don't know, but it meant a lot to me, and I wouldn't have changed my time at the Anchorage Daily News for anything. So last thought I have is that when we pass away, the physical part of us passes away, but the true spirit and the energy that is so important in us doesn't. It's out there in the cosmos somewhere. So that's where, when you pass, when I pass, I feel like we're going to be out there in the cosmos. And I expect to see you again, see your spirit. And if you have a newspaper in the cosmos, I want to work for it.
Hi there, Howard. I first heard about you from Frank McCullough, who told me the best editor of all is in Anchorage. He described you as whip smart, a natural leader, and possessing that ineffable trait of charisma. Frank, of course, was right, but if anything, he understated it. You inspired and elevated all those fortunate enough to have worked with you, and the results were so impressive. Groundbreaking journalism, improbably winning a David versus Goliath newspaper war, and you leading, editing, and reporting 2 public service Pulitzer Prize winning projects. No one else has done that. I think back on our innumerable conversations as almost magical. We all knew that when we went to lunch with Howard, it would be exhilarating. We would think, we would learn, we would laugh, and we'd hear some impossibly witty quips, which we would commit to memory, but forget by dinner. But no worries. Howard knew them all and never forgot a thing. Who needed the internet when you've got a polymath like Howard around? You taught me Frederick Jameson's reconfiguration of the postmodern sublime, as the simultaneous contemplation of ecstasy and dread. That sounds about right, doesn't it? Hell, you even put the postmodern sublime on a t-shirt. And that t-shirt had the highest IQ of any shirt ever made. One afternoon, about 20 years ago now, you and I drove down to the Bay Area to see one of your favorites, Van Morrison, and my favorites, the Rolling Stones. We had a blast. Afterwards, we drove back home, and we listened to and sang along with another one of our favorites, Bob Dylan. And somehow, some way, trapped in that car, in the middle of the night, your rendition of Idiot Wind was pitch perfect, from the Grand Coulee Dam to the Capitol. Howard, you made us all better in ways big and small, and you made it a fun ride the whole way. Thank you so very, very much.
Fuck, Howard, I don't even know where to begin. The story of my adult life is the story of your professional mentorship and our friendship. I've known you since I was 24 years old, which is now 47 years. As an editor, I've always found you to be wise, trusting, daring, compassionate, and inspiring. As a friend, you were exactly the same. I came to work for you at the Alaska Advocate in 1977. I can't say you hired me because you never actually paid me anything, but just getting to work with you and for you was reward enough. After the Advocate folded, you went to work at the ADN and got me hired there as well. The newspaper war was raging and the survival of the Daily News was at stake. That struggle went on for years, often with you striding the newsroom, urging on the staff with martial wisdom from Sun Tzu and Admiral Lord Nelson and other warlike creatures. You assembled a remarkable staff and produced award-winning, entertaining, and change-making journalism. You are the most gifted writer I ever had the good fortune to edit. I learned what it meant to be an editor from you, and you liked and encouraged many of my more offbeat ideas, although occasionally you had to rein me in, like the time I proposed to administer an intelligence test to legislative candidates. Every day was not fun, but God, did we have fun. We got to use type in ways that God never intended. We did a crazy great magazine called 8. We sent a reporter out to the boonies and told him to cover life, not news, and so much more. As Mike Campbell told me recently, your superpower was the fact that your staff wanted so much to please you, to entertain you, and to impress you. We won a Pulitzer Prize gold medal, your second. And I couldn't have asked for a better friend. You and Barb lived just down the street. We shared meals, we floated rivers, we traveled together. You were the best man at my wedding and are the godfather of my daughter. It's no overstatement to say that many of the best days of my life were shared with you, and all of the best days of my professional life were shared with you. I think you can see from the videos on these clips that you had a positive effect on the lives of so many people. When you think about it, it's not hundreds, it's thousands of people who were in some way better off because they had the opportunity to know you, to talk to you, to hear you, to watch you. So it seems not enough to simply say thank you. But in the end, that's all I've got. Thanks, Howard. Thank you very much. I love you.